Okay, hello, and thank you for joining us for this quick conversation. Today we're going to be joined by Sophie, and we're going to be looking at display accommodations on the iPad and how you might use them in the classroom. Before we get too far into that, Sophie, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sophie and I am a year one teacher in South East London.
Perfect. So, Sophie, we're going to talk about display accommodations today, and we're kind of covering two in one, I suppose. We're going to look at changing the text to make it easier to read, by adding a bold weight to that font to making the size larger, and then also actually color filters on the screen. Um, could you just explain to people watching what these features are and why they're useful to begin with?
So if we start with the color filter feature, on the iPad, it changes the color of the screen slightly, and it's based off of the different colors that are used to treat things like dyslexia and visual stress. And the colors help people who have needs like dyslexia or they have visual stress to be able to see what's on the screen more clearly. And then the option to make the text bolder is just another feature that helps bring the text forward a bit, stand out more, and make it easier to read. Sometimes it can get a bit lost in the picture.
So it sounds like perhaps dyslexia is a key example of how these tools can actually transform learning and make content more accessible for the learners.
Yeah, so that's actually how I came to find out about these features. I'm dyslexic and was diagnosed with stress. And I was looking through the accessibility features and found the filters. And I had been given blue as an option when I was told about being dyslexic. And so I changed my screen and then very quickly realized, oh, actually, this works for a lot of people, not just with dyslexia, but visual stress comes in many forms. And so we now try and use it, a bit more in the classroom.
Sophie, this is really interesting. I want to dig a bit more into that. But before we do, let's have a quick look at how people watching this can enable these features on their iPad. To enable these two accessibility features, jump into the Settings app and then scroll down till you reach Accessibility. From here, you want to go onto Display and Text Size. Immediately on this screen, you'll notice there's a toggle at the top there for bold text. And when I turn that on, my whole interface changes and the writing becomes a lot clearer and easier to read. We could also change the text size at this point as well if we wanted to, but I'm going to leave that for now, instead opting to turn on increased contrast instead. You'll notice now that the difference between the foreground and the background stands out more, which again makes the text clearer to read. And the other really useful feature on this screen are called color filters. If I scroll down slightly and then tap onto this option, here at the top of my screen I've got a set of coloured crayons, and beneath that, when I enable a colour filter, I'll see my whole screen change and the colour of those crayons change as well. On here there are some predefined filters which are great if you've got colour blindness, but of course you can also choose your own colour tint, and you can use that slider to find the exact hue and saturation that you want. This is great perhaps if you want to have a coloured overlay on your whole screen, maybe a blue or green overlay, which can be excellent for supporting people with dyslexia. Of course you can fine-tune whatever colour and hue you want, and it will apply to the entire OS. When you leave this app and open up anything else, that colour filter will be there, almost like a sheet of transparent plastic on top of your iPad. Okay, so that's how you enable it, and as you can see, it's a really simple process. But Sophie, as you were saying earlier, this has had a transformational impact on you yourself, actually, as well. Could you talk a little bit more about that and, the difference it makes when you're using your iPad?
As someone with dyslexia, I was drawn to technology from quite an early age because it's something I could access. I found writing very difficult. I found reading very difficult. And the visual stress didn't help with that. And so when I discovered that this was just a built-in feature on the iPad, I didn't need a special film or special books that were blue-coloured that I'd had in primary school, the kind of things that set you apart a little bit and make you feel a bit awkward. They were just built in, and it meant I could sit in staff meetings, I could sit with my teaching partner, and it would be something that was helping me, but then wasn't making me stand out as... which was always really, it just makes life a lot easier.
I can imagine it being very difficult if you have got, that coloured film or the different colour paper on the worksheets and stuff. As a child or as an adult, that can be quite an isolating feeling, I would imagine. So actually having it built into the iPad is the way of reducing that barrier, but getting the same impact and the same use out of that device. Do you use it with your students as well?
Yeah, so we have a look and see if any children are struggling. So when they get their iPads, we show them this feature, and then they have a little play through the colours and see if any of them look a bit better for them. Because visual stress is not something that I think is easily diagnosed, especially in children. So we just kind of are very gentle, which colour do you think you like best, which thing makes things easier to see. And they really enjoy that opportunity. It's another aspect of personalising their iPads. You find sometimes that they'll put it on, and after a little while said, actually, no, I don't need that. They just, children are children at the time. They like the idea, but they quickly realise those who need it and those who are fine without. But it's just great that they can learn another aspect of what it can do.
I actually find that really fascinating. I was going to ask about, do you kind of like suggest to some children to use it? But by the sounds of it, you get everyone to try it, see how they feel, and if they get on with it, they can keep it going. Is that kind of the plan?
Yeah, so if they like it, then they carry on with it. If they don't, they know how to turn it on and off. I always think, even if it's not for them, if they know it's there, they can show somebody else. The children love to show and highlight. They might go home and say, look what I did today, and then they've told somebody else about it. It's such an easy adaptation that is available for iPhones and iPads, and it can make such a difference. I mean, mine's need is quite mild, but when you've got some people who have got letters floating around the screen, very challenging, and such a little change could make the world a difference.
It's great to hear that. I really like the way you invite all the students to try it, because again, it goes back to that whole thing of feeling isolated. If everyone's trying it, then everyone's on the same page, and if they want to keep it, they can. There's no kind of like stigmatism around that. That's a great way of doing it, actually. I was going to ask if there are kind of any barriers that you found to using it in the classroom. Do you find that it has an impact elsewhere on the iPad, or is it pretty much good to go?
It's pretty much good to go. It's very easy to enable, and let's say once the children know how to do it, they will have it on and off. Sometimes they don't like the film over if they're watching a video or something, and it changes the colour of what they're watching. They don't like that, so they'll turn it off. But yeah, we kind of try and let them manage it. Otherwise they go exploring and they do things they shouldn't. So if you teach them what it does and doesn't do,
it's very empowering for the children as well, actually being given that ability to do that. Because you're right, if you don't cover it, there will be one child in the class that finds it like, oh, I've made my iPad blue, everyone look at this, and then before you know it, it has like a snowball effect. But explain what it's for and how it can be helpful. It empowers the learners, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely. It's that valuable for all, vital for some kind of idea that, not everyone is going to need it. It's not going to be that important for them. But they've been part of explaining what it is. They've had a look at it. They've been able to decide if that's something they do or don't need. Of course, we go around and kind of maybe, help children who we think might need more of a focus on it.
Yeah.
Like which works for you, which one doesn't. But then at least they've all been included in that.
Yeah. So, Sophie, this has been really interesting. I wish it wasn't a quick conversation. I could talk for ages about this, but we need to be strict. My last question, if people are watching this and perhaps they haven't tried these accommodations for the display before, what advice would you give them, either for them personally or in their class? How would you suggest they get started?
So I would say that the accessibility option in the setting is really well explained. It's really clear what each aspect does or doesn't do. I would take some time, go to that area of the settings and just explore what each option does. Particularly the display settings. After all, the iPad is a very visual device. It's used in a very visual way. And those features, even if it's just brightness or contrast, can make a huge difference to how you use it. But I find that exploration is the best option.
Absolutely, and don't be afraid, people, to actually look in that accessibility settings section, because there are so many options there that can change the way you use the iPad for the better, just by toggling a switch. It's remarkable, isn't it? Sophie, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and you sharing your learnings with us. And hopefully it will encourage people to give these features a try and benefit themselves and their students. So thank you.
No worries. Thank you.